Thank you. Hey, everybody. So my name is Jose Guido. I lead the credit risk practice at Deloitte. I do have the honor of moderating this panel of extraordinary individuals we have lined up for you. And look, I mean, what we wanted to do here was span the entire AI decisioning stack to get good representation across the industry there. So we have Sarah here from RBC, and she's going to bring that bank risk and regulatory lens. We have Dinesh from Northlake, representing that non-bank growth and strategy perspective. And last but not least, Matt from Trust Science. And he's going to cover the technology and the analytics underpinning these models. Look, just to kind of set the framework here, AI is live. It's here. It's not something that's coming. It's already here. It's influencing real credit decisions. And that's exactly what we're here to unpack. All right, so that's kind of to set things off. And, there's no better way to start than, what is AI, right? Like, this isn't some sort of AI animated Mickey Mouse driving down the 427, right? How are lenders currently using AI? How do you separate the hype from the real efforts to try to do something meaningful? And maybe we can separate this into two sections. Maybe we start with everybody framing what AI is in their respective organizations. And perhaps we start with our technology and analytics partner, Matt, and then go across the panel there.
Yeah, so what is AI in our respective organizations? We are not talking about LLMs and a bunch of other stuff that gets a whole lot of headlines these days. I mean, at Trust Science, we help our lender partners really enable these data tools and techniques in their lending operations. Often the lenders have an idea or a concept of what they want to do, and then we help them ascribe a value to that opportunity and then employ the data and tools and techniques to really capture that. That's bringing in different data sources, or it's using existing data sources differently, or bringing in other data sources such as cash flow data or other kinds of data that are not out of the traditional bureaus, things that find small dollar lending activity that is way more prevalent up and down the credit stack than you would expect. Or other kinds of things like modeling techniques that use different training windows and different targets, things like that, and bringing all of that together to look at a much more layered view of risk. Now, I don't know if that's really AI, but it's data and tools and techniques that are different than the way things are traditionally done. And so we just help lenders bring those things together in a little bit different manner to bring a much more refined view of risk. Right?
Excellent. Dinesh, thoughts?
Hi. I think I got the short straw because that light is directly in my eyes. Thanks, Sarah. AI, I mean, I think, I know we previously had a conversation on this, and the one thing I'd kind of make clear, right, is we got to be, as lenders and everybody in this room, really careful not just to get into the hype, right? AI, I've heard everything from we're not doing it to we must do it, right? And you need to really bifurcate what AI is and what it means to your business. At Northlake, we are 100% automated decision. We have no credit underwriters, right? So where are we on AI, right? Ours is really a journey on foundation. So AI to us is really a prosthetic. It's a tool to enable us to do what we do really, really well. We're backed, by Westlake, which we're fortunate on. We have access to a team of 500 dedicated software engineers, and we have a global platform, right? So when we hear AI, we don't necessarily jump to, like Matt said, LLMLs and cool things and all the rest of it. It's really what's your use case, and we're very disciplined and dedicated in developing a thesis, right? So, we choose to operate on, if I successfully do what I'm about to do, what do I think will happen and how will that help me achieve my end objective? So our use of AI is extensive. We have AI from everything from part of our decision engine to the way we handle our customer calls. But it's been a very, very progressive journey, and it's been a very deliberate journey.
Between Jose and Dinesh here, I feel like I'm being set up as the big bad wolf on this panel from RBC. So I actually think about AI in two different ways. So one, obviously being a credit risk modeler for 2/3 of my career, I was always the first to be like, AI and machine learning has always been in credit risk modeling. If you go and ask any data scientist on your team, and they will tell you that neural nets, all of these technologies, a lot of the math was developed in the 80s, right? We've had some interesting advancements since, and so I would always say that we are always doing AI. That being said, I've started to realize in the last month alone, I've started to develop a very maybe uncomfortable relationship with some of my favorite LLMs as well. And everything from I have genuinely changed my mind on how I think about this. I think I've always been an AI bear, a little bit of like, oh, this is so hype. I don't need to pay attention to this now, et cetera, et cetera. However, in the fall, genuinely using one of the Copilot agents, our team had fundamentally taken something that would typically take us 3 or 4 months to do, and we were able to do it in 3 days with a Copilot agent. That was mind-blowing, and that was the first time I actually felt terrified for my job. I was like, oh, you could actually replace me one day. And to be honest, based on my conversations with the AI right now, I actually think that it could do a better job than I could in about a year at this point in time. So there is the typical AI in modeling, and I will honestly say, like, if you have not managed to implement your first neural net, if you're not looking at embeddings, if you do not have the infrastructure to keep up with it, then you're way behind the game at this point in time. On the other side of things, using AI, especially the new LLM technologies, as operational gains and efficiency plays, we are seeing leaps and strides even in just the modeling world alone.
No, I love it, and we're definitely on the same side. We used to work together on the modeling side, so I speak the language and I love the language. But look, I think what everybody's here to listen to a bit more are those lived experiences, right? How are you guys using AI in your day-to-day lived credit decisioning experiences? And maybe we start again, Dinesh, with yourself. Your organization is already doing some interesting stuff with technology, real-time decisioning. Maybe we could start with you, and you can walk us through some practical AI use cases.
Yeah, so similar to what Sarah said, like that's really been our journey and our experience, right? Which is, you start with a model which, I was thinking about this the other day, and it's kind of like when you think about how credit risk has evolved, you've gone from the entrepreneur that had a gut feel to the expert model, which was like, trust me, I know what I'm doing, right? Then you've got the logistic regression, which was always easy to explain and understand. Then you kind of went to business intelligence, which was looking to deliver more deeper insights. And now you've got AI. And, the cautionary tale is just be mindful when you're building models that your intelligence is not actually artificial. And I discussed this with the two of you, right? Which is, it's interesting to hear you say, I think that it's going to take away from my job. And I actually believe the reverse. I actually believe AI innovation is a fantastic opportunity for all of us in this room, like even within our respective companies, but also as an ecosystem, to come together and collaborate. And I'll talk more about it, but there are some, everybody knows about Klarna, right? Klarna went out and said, we've got AI, and it was an epic fail. And it was an epic fail because they missed on the fundamentals, which was, so how do we do AI in our modeling? What we do is we take the task that you say takes so long, and we leverage the intelligence of AI to reduce those turns, right? Like for anybody that's worked with modeling data or any kind of data, the biggest job is, just prepping your data. And I think that's singularly where our journey started, where we were starting to use what was theoretically contaminated data and starting to clean it up, starting to normalize the patterns, understand it, recognize it. But one of the things that I will kind of say that we do is not that we're cautious, we're very speedy with what we do, but we are cautious in our deployment to make sure that we don't deliver a negative experience. And the other thing that we do in our AI models is we have speed to change. So if we do a deploy, we can quickly undeploy, pivot, or change. And that has really been our saving grace on anything that we do or any partner that we work. But, our use case, to answer your question very specifically, has been kind of crawl, walk, run. Start slow, use it, validate it, make sure that human understands it, and then get comfortable with it. And then as our internal models start to understand and recognize, we become more and more reliant on it.
Matt?
There's a lot there. Briefly, I'll just say start, right? The biggest thing we see, the biggest impediment is the organizational willingness to change, right? So picking up on Dinesh's point here, you don't have to eat the whole elephant all at once, right? Just start somewhere, pick a use case, focus in on that. There are plenty of partners around to help you figure this out, but just start somewhere and go. If you do what you've always done, you will get worse than you've always gotten, because all of this is moving, everyone else is moving, and so if you're not, you'll be worse than left behind, I think, to Sarah's earlier point. So you just have to start and focus somewhere.
I have a question for you. Sorry, Jose.
No, please.
Well, for both of you. So the start, I totally agree. How are you balancing the other ends of the world, saying like, no, we've promised shareholders X billion dollars this year with AI, versus starts, crawl, walk, run?
I can take it. I mean, we're fortunate in that we don't really, I mean, we do have people that we're responsible to. But I think you've got to kind of bifurcate the short term versus the long term, right? You can do a massive deployment. You can think that you've really solved it, and you can fall flat on your face. You know, you can get 1 quarter, 2 quarter, but then where do you go? I think as leaders in this room, sometimes you have to stand your ground. And yes, it makes sense. And yes, it's sexy, and everybody's doing it. But I will come back and say, like, honestly, and I think, Sarah, you said it, right? If you don't have the foundation, then be careful how fast you choose to run. Because when you trip and fall, it may not just be a grazed knee, it could be a leg amputation.
No,
Yeah.
it's slowly building momentum.
No, I hear that. And look, I think the overarching theme I'm hearing is everybody's there, right? Everybody's there. Get moving, people. It's very interesting because you've all kind of said variants on if you don't do it, you're going to be left behind, right? So maybe a natural segue. And I like the choice words of, AI in itself is sexy, but getting ready for AI is not sexy. All the technology infrastructure, the people, the talent. So maybe we could focus the next question precisely on that, right? What does that readiness look like to each of you in terms of getting to that, AI mastery level? I don't know, you can go this way?
Yeah, so for us, I think it's really interesting. One of the first things that I'm noticing that not everyone has, and I really think that you should explore this, is you're not giving access to myriads of tools. Like, it's not sufficient to just have access to ChatGPT, just Copilot, just Cohere, just Sonnet. To be honest, they're all different and they all have strengths and they're all evolving at different levels. Through our experimentations, we're actually using that to help us identify where we're missing our foundations. Let's say someone is just experimenting, they want to do X, Y, Z. That actually helps me go back and say, hey, do we have the foundational capabilities to productionize this? This is a really cool experiment, but that's all it is. It's an experiment until you can run that in production, until you can reap the benefits on a bigger, wider scale at that point in time. So it's interesting because I think that I'm starting to notice that people are using this as a tool to recognize where maybe before there wasn't as much traction to build and migrate your data lake, to make GPUs accessible to more of your data scientists, et cetera. But you're going to need those if you want to take advantage of some of these cool experiments that your teams are doing.
Dinesh, thoughts?
Yeah, I'll come back to kind of like what I was saying in terms of it's an opportunity for collaboration. I actually think it's fantastic. I think it's really resets the level playing field. Like, for any of you that have built a model externally and built a model internally, you will know that the internal model will beat the external model hands down every day. Why? It's because, hopefully, your modelers understand your business and your business problem, right? Why do I talk about collaboration, right? So to me, it comes down to corporate culture, right? And it can't just be like, tomorrow, Matt, you will AI. It's a slow burn, right? It's like we're moving into this. What does it mean? Remember, right? I'm not suggesting that anybody within our organizations have Luddites, but people are fearful right now, right? So if we don't bring everybody along, then we're going to do ourselves a lot of damage as a lending community. And I'm talking about the entire ecosystem, because we'll lose faith in what we're doing, and then the regulator will come down with a heavy hand and tell us what to do, which won't make sense. But what I would say is, right now what we have is we build predictive models, and the risk professionals work with the modelers. And that's kind of worked because we have what we call business rules, which are the safety net. But as we move into AI, it becomes a tremendous opportunity for operations to work with risk, to work with modeling, right? And without that collaboration, right, and I don't know if we're going to have questions on data bias, but you're going to find inherent flaws in your deployments, right? Because there are people in your organization that do critical work that nobody sees. Right now, they're called underwriters, right? We don't have any because we've actually gone through this journey, right? All our business rules are actually standardized, they're systemic. We can test it because we don't have human judgment. But in a lot of lending shops, there's human judgment being applied that saves you, right? So your default rates aren't what they could be. Everybody will run a model and say, oh, well, my model is amazing. Well, take out the humans and tell me how amazing that model is, right? So when you say, what does AI deployment look like? It talks about organizational culture where you actually have collaboration top down.
Checks and balances is a good foundation.
I think we've probably covered this pretty well. I mean, I'm just going to reinforce the only way you get to either of those, though, is some commitment and support from the top to actually do this. And it can't be just parked in one little corner. There's not like the AI team over in the corner that is suddenly going to spread AI pixie dust over the rest of the organization. It doesn't work that way. You have to have commitment from the top to actually do this and give broad dispersion of the tools and access to the tools, as Sarah said, and everybody has to get in on this journey. If you do what you've always done, you're going to get a lot worse than you've always got. So just start.
I'm going to steal that.
And look, I mean, again, I think natural segue here as an ex-banker, I'd be negligent to not mention the regulatory expectations. I know we've kind of sprinkled on the topic here and there, but I really want to try to understand everyone's thoughts on, again, compliance with lending regulations, but also the divergence between regulated entities and non-regulated entities. I think that's just as important, right? And what that's going to lead to. So maybe we go down the row again and just get the perspectives from across the room.
The regulators, yeah. I have spent a lot of time on many different fronts with the regulators, and I find it really, really fascinating. I think the reality is they're not this big, bad entity all the time, at least. They genuinely are trying to understand this, and they know as much as we do at this point in time. So they're willing to collaborate. They're constantly looking for discussions. They're constantly bringing together all the different facets of the industry to create position papers and eventually understand what that turns into, right? I think the difference is, and this is, I think, where you have to be really careful with your AI. I don't let the AIs build models, not yet at this point in time. It's a tool, like a prosthetic, like Dinesh had mentioned, for our modelers. And then every step of the way, there is a checks and balances. That can be a really strong model validation team. That can be someone really, really strong, a business partner or a credit strategy partner down the road that is applying their own judgments to what is happening there on that end as well. We can't just let it sort of run amok, because then we are going to start making poor decisions, and poor decisions get noticed by the regulator, and then the regulator starts making some questions that you really don't want to answer at that point in time as well. And I think the reality is, like, every single step, it is a very long process from the day that you have data. in a system all the way through to a decision being made at the other end, there are so many teams that touch that in some way, shape, or form, and every single step of that does have to be monitored or checks and balanced along the way.
I mean, I think regulated or not regulated, I think there's a moral compass and just business logic that says you have to be cognizant of what you're doing. And one of the grounding principles that we use is whilst we're 100% automated, our decisions still have to be explainable. Every now and again, we'll get the sales guy or somebody from verification saying, don't like it, don't believe it, why is this doing the way it's doing it? Because when I look at the raw whatever, but you've also got to be very, as we move as fast as we do, right? Because the tools are just a tool. It's not sentient, right? Like it doesn't have a personality, and it doesn't understand about, we heard, I don't want to use a buzzword, right? But unconscious bias, right? These AIs can have unconscious bias, redlining, implement, because the data suggests it, right? Prejudicial practices, right? So I love what you said, right? Because that's how we do it. Like, our models are not unconstrained, right? They're governed, they're managed, and we look at it through a realistic lens to say, is it right? And I think if you just I think there's a belief out there that I can just take data. I can go to Equifax and TransUnion and buy data. I can go to Clutch and buy its sales, and I can just put it into a magic machine, and I've got a model that will work. I've tried it. It doesn't work.
I just want to add one thing. I'm actually more scared of my business partners, the dealers, the consumer on the other end, than I actually am of the regulator at that point in time. So
You don't have to. I was going to say you don't have to be scared of the regulators, maybe just a little bit. But I've been a banker, and I've educated regulators on models and things. And it's if you keep the consumer, if you keep the applicant sort of at the forefront of everything, and you do what's right, like if you just think of headline risk, if your name and your company are on the front page of the paper doing this thing to the consumer, and you're okay with whatever that's going to say, and you let that be your guide, you're going to be fine. Partner with the regulators, educate them, bring them along. It's a journey, it's a process, as Sarah said. You have to take them as a partner and bring them along. But if you can show them how this is beneficial to the consumer, it's going to be fine. It's a process. But the regulated, non-regulated, or the bank, non-bank, it's not that it's unregulated. It's just differently regulated, I guess, right? The non-banks are definitely moving faster in this. Their organizations are built differently, they respond differently, they move more quickly, and there is a divergence there. We see it every day. When we work with the non-banks, they move much more quickly. So that's just a reality of the situation. It's a different burden because of the deposit insurance and everything else, right?
It's interesting. We've talked about what this is, why it matters, what are the guardrails, and I'm now kind of interested in letting the crowd get your thoughts on where this is going, right? So, maybe each of you can just, in one sentence, because I'm cognizant of time, tell us what excites you the most about the future of AI in automotive lending. It could be a long sentence, but not too long.
Real-time data, real-time decisions is really, really exciting. Real-time data for things like, did somebody take out a payday loan this morning, and that's where that down payment came from? Real-time data that says, hey, this is where this bust-out fraud is occurring that's ravaging so many lenders. Real-time data for real-time decisions. It's here today. That's really exciting.
For me, where I get excited is what it actually means for consumers. I think you heard Dan and Nick talk about, the whole, we talk a lot about the customer experience, right? At the end of the day, why do we want to do all of this? Obviously, most all of us are here for-profit organizations, right? But how do we do that, right? And I think what this ultimately will look like in 3 to 5 years is an absolutely phenomenal customer experience and a customer journey I think it'll reduce friction. It will apply. You heard Mike talk about, friction. We got too much friction, all the rest of it. It'll help us refine our points at which we need to introduce friction. But ultimately, I think the winner in all of this, if done right, and we will do it right because we've got no other option, is going to be the consumer. And that's what gets most exciting.
I'm looking forward to things being easy. Just everything being easy. I know it sounds really, really silly, but if you look at your processes end to end, there's hiccups every which way. There's exceptions all the time. And I'm just hoping that using these tools, it will get us to a point where we can build consistency and smooth out those bumps, and just, to be able to call the business is day to day is just easy would be really, really great.
That's great, guys. And look, I think just as final thoughts for the room, for those that are, for whatever reason, currently uninitiated, what would be one key piece of advice to lenders considering adopting AI for credit decisioning? Like, what would that be? I guess we can go across.
Open the doors. I already mentioned, give people access to the tools and let them be inspired by them, and let them inspire you, honestly.
I would also kind of say, I love that, but I think we've got a lot of teammates that kind of hear the word AI and they have very little understanding and exposure to it. And I think creating that exposure, like culture, I've used that word a few times. Culture is critical in this thing, right? Culture within your entities and culture within our community. Right? Like how we do this, how quickly we move. Yes, there's going to be some laggards, and yes, there's going to be some guys that break through the wall, right? But I think it really foundationally starts with culture at every different turning point. And if we get that culture right, then I think we're all going to be massively successful as we look to engage and deploy this.
I'll just tie all that together. It's, again, start, organizational commitment. I mean, do the lunch and learns, do the collaboration, get everybody talking about this, demystify it, get rid of the fear. These are hugely enabling, empowering tools. They're not the boogeyman, right? They're great tools. They're great for collaboration. They're great for the consumer. Just get in there and get going, right? That's it. Get the conversation going, roll up your sleeves, bring in the partners, get the conversation going with them. Get the conversation going within things like this. Just get the conversation going and just get going. You build on the momentum. If you get going, the ball starts rolling, everything starts rolling.
No, that's great, guys, and thank you very much. And look, I think just closing wise, I myself was probably an AI skeptic in the beginning, and once you realize the full extent of what you can do with these tools, what I would say is that at least they're a great productivity tool. I would take that away at least. From a productivity perspective, that's going to be the differentiator. And then what people do on top of that is going to set them apart from the rest of the peers. I think we're done with that, guys. Thank you.